the CEOs of these AI companies are out there making statements that, are probably quite hyperbolic, but also that seem like very like antisocial, where it's like AI is going to replace all white collar jobs or all humanities jobs, and basically working as hard as they can to make that happen. So for me as a person, with a white collar job, I see that and I'm like, oh no, I really don't want that. And I know there's plenty of other people out there online, talking about that, or plenty of other, like media and journalists writing about this particular topic. But to me, it's pretty clear that it's because they're speaking to an investor audience, right? So like they're specifically looking at the people that are funneling money into their companies and saying, okay, how much can this grow? What are some of the risks of ignoring many other stakeholder groups in favor of, one? And we're actually seeing like the public perception kind of like shifting negatively towards AI companies and obviously data centers and things like that.
It's an interesting calculus. Like, how are we defining risk? You know what I mean? Like if you're an Elon Musk or if you're a Palantir or something, do they only define risk as whether or not they get what they're after, whatever their new project is? Or do they consider social consequence a risk? Or do they consider kind of some of the long-term, past the metrics, past the quarter, do they consider that a risk? I think, when you think about the field of public policy, and, sociology and public policy to me are kind of two sides of the same coin, because it's really how do we identify as groups, and then how do we set guardrails as groups for the benefit of all. And the field of policy is really about being attentive to the needs of everyone, not just kind of the center of the curve, if you will. And it's really intentional in thinking about what are the unintended consequences of a choice. And not just how do we make the fastest choice, but how do we make choices in ways that give everyone an opportunity for their best life. That's a really different set of value proposition than just speaking to investors. And as a private business, there's a lot of private businesses that just speak to investors. That is not, I think, atypical. Where it becomes gray, especially with some of these technology companies, is their business is really, in many ways, infrastructure. And every other form of infrastructure that we have is a highly regulated environment. You look at what it takes to build a highway or a toll road. You take what it looks to build a power grid. It's different from state to state, but there is regulation around it. And this is really the governance has not caught up to the technology, but we are, I think, seeing these connection points or these rubs where the public good has to get on the ledger at some point.